If your child were buried beneath concrete tonight, would you accept a visa stamp as the price of their voice? Would you forgive a world that audits paperwork faster than it protects a heartbeat? Gaza's sky is a siren that never sleeps. Hospitals flicker in and out like dying stars. Bread is rationed, water is brown, and childhood has been replaced by the language of airstrikes and funerals. This is not a conflict between equals. It is state power crushing a trapped population, and it is time to say it without euphemisms. Israel's policies in Gaza, blockade, bombardment, displacement, are collective punishment that tears through international law and basic humanity. While Washington slams the door on Palestinian officials with a blanket visa ban, one leader stood up and said, "No." France's President Emmanuel Macron called that decision unacceptable and demanded Palestinian representation at the UN. He did more than tweet sympathy. He pressed for a permanent ceasefire, the release of hostages, massive humanitarian aid, a stabilization mission for Gaza, and a political horizon that excludes armed groups from governance while strengthening a reformed Palestinian Authority. In a season of moral fog, he lit a signal flare. Let's be clear about responsibility. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's government calls this security, yet the images from Khan Yunis, Rafah, and Gaza City show apartment blocks flattened to chalk and pediatric wards turned into triage corridors. The IDF's campaign has shattered neighborhoods, schools, and the very possibility of ordinary life. Families are told to evacuate into zones that are then struck. Where do you run in a cage? Where do you hide when the map itself is a target? And on the political horizon, annexation is whispered like a threat to redraw borders while the rubble is still warm. And still, diplomacy is throttled. A visa ban does more than block travel. It erases witnesses. It says, you may be bombed, but you may not speak. The UN issues statements. The ICC circles the runway. Powerful capitals weigh polling before principle. Meanwhile, France and Saudi Arabia convene a conference for a two-state future, an imperfect, fragile path. Yes, but a path. For that, President Macron, respect. You reminded the world that recognition, reconstruction, and real oversight are not radical. They are the bare minimum. Now, bring the camera closer. A nurse tapes an IV to a child's arm because the generator failed. Again, a father breaks bread into 6 thin moons and tells his sons it's a game. A little girl keeps her school certificate in a plastic bag because the roof leaks ash. These are not statistics. They are warnings to a world that pretends silence is neutral. Silence is a side, so I will name things plainly. Starvation as leverage is a war crime. Bombing clinics and shelters is a war crime. Turning an entire strip of land into a laboratory of despair is moral collapse. And to those who hide behind the word complex, I ask, is a child's breath complicated? Here's the turning point. If Paris can speak, others can too. Europe, Africa, Latin America, the Arab world, step forward. Recognize Palestine. Demand an arms embargo. Open corridors for food, water, medicine, and fuel. And bind every actor, Israeli officials, armed factions, international suppliers, to real accountability. Pressure works when it is relentless and public. Peace is not the absence of rockets. It is the presence of rights and the end of impunity. Why is the world quiet for Gaza's children? Is your timeline more sacred than their lives? If you believe a ceasefire, full humanitarian access, and real justice cannot wait, be loud. Share this now. Tag leaders who dodge the truth. In the comments, answer this. What scares powerful people more, international law or the sound of a child finally being heard?